1 2 1 2. I go by the name of DJ What, and you're now listening to the original Jeek Podcast. Let's go.
Ready to make an entrance, so backward cut. Come on, clap for me.
Oh yeah. Whoa, slow down. Whoa, speed up.
Fresh.
Yeah, making me itch.
What up, Jeeks? I am the original Jeek, your host, the one and only RockinMrMagic, and this is the original Jeek Podcast. I have to start the show off with an apology. Yo, it's been like 3 months since we've dropped an episode, and I really started 2024 out with just every intention trying to continue to be as consistent as I possibly could with content creating for you, because I enjoy it so much. I enjoy the feedback that I get from episodes, people that hear it and enjoy it and share it. And I thank each and every one of you so much for subscribing and for sharing and enjoying the original Jeek Podcast. We had a slight hiccup, between like March and like May, and then we just went July to middle of October. And for those of you who know me personally, there's been just so much going on in my life that it wouldn't have lended the opportunity time-wise, and honestly wouldn't have been fair to those around me for me to carve out time to do this. It wouldn't have been justified for me to have this level of fun while there were some other serious things that needed to be handled. So things have calmed down. And this is something that I enjoy, so it helps me. And I have carved out the time to be back here on the mic for this podcast. So let's get into it. Starting with our normal first subject, first topic, first segment of the episodes that we do is, what are you DW? But wow, DW. DW's from, what's it called? Arthur. What are you PWC? What are you playing, watching, creating? It's been several months of PWC in my head here. So I would say I want to hear what you've been playing out there, in the comments, either on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Good Pods, however you listen to us. I would love to hear what you're playing, watching, and creating. Me, I haven't been doing much creating, obviously, because I started off this episode with an apology because I haven't been able to create like I'd like to. But playing and watching, I've been doing playing and I've been doing some watching. I have been on a massive Fallout 4 kick. I bought the game. It was the Game of the Year edition. It was $10, on the Sony store. And it was, I think, because the show had debuted on Prime. And I had never really gotten into Fallout. I played smattering bits of Fallout 76 because it was free on PlayStation Plus. But I really didn't get a grasp of Fallout. So after watching the show and enjoying it and enjoying, the attention to detail and the things I recognized from Fallout 76, I was like, okay, this looks like I may really enjoy this game. And I only invested $10, like no big deal. So I started playing Fallout 4. I've been on a consistent Fallout 4 kick. It's been a couple months of Fallout 4. It's actually on pause behind the camera right now. Yeah, it's Fallout 4. I've been having a really good time with it. It has its problems because it is an older game. Like, let's keep it a buck. The game's been out for like 8 years. So it's got its issues, but they've done updates. The DLCs are cool. I've only had one really big issue with it, and that's a bug that other people I discovered online had, where for some reason the game just started crashing once I got within the vicinity of certain areas. So I couldn't go back to Vault 111. I couldn't go back to the Sanctuary. Once I couldn't get back to the first Red Rocket gas station. Once, if I tried to fast travel there, the game would freeze. If I tried to run manually there from my Abernathy farm, the game would freeze. Yeah, so if you play Fallout 4, actually, I should say this. If you haven't been playing Fallout 4 like myself, you're new to Fallout 4 and you want to really enjoy the game, save frequently. And not only in the autosave. I mean, do some manual saves frequently. If you get to a spot like, yo, I really like what I've got going on here, especially if you take the time to build up a lot of these settlements, bro, save. If you like what you got going on, save. Because I built up a couple settlements and then the game froze. And then when I went back to my previous save, the save that got corrupted I was at 1107. I had to go back to my last manual save where I was at level 88. Thankfully, I had just lost a lot of levels. There was still some of the settlement building up that I had done that was still there, but there was some significant building that I hadn't been able to retain that I had to redo. Thankfully, I was able to do it a little differently, a little better than I initially did because I had acclimated myself to the settlement building, the construction, workshop building there. So I was a little better at it. So now the newer ones look better than the initial ones do, but having to spend that time was a little frustrating. But regardless, I'm still having a great time with Fallout 4. I've been watching, I was supposed to record an Olympics episode back in July. That didn't happen. I thoroughly enjoyed watching the Olympics, regular and para. Gained a new appreciation for the track and field, especially in the para Olympics, and learning more on how the intricacies of the rules when you're doing these sprints with the guide. Really super cool and just like, a testament to teamwork, self-sacrifice. Like there's so much, on a morality, spiritual level. Watching people run, that'll preach. Okay. I'm just going to leave it at that. That'll preach. I started Agatha all along. I went to the movies and saw Deadpool and Wolverine. So watched a good amount of stuff. Probably talk about those things in a future episode. I'm not talking about that today, but I have been watching stuff. I've been able to keep up, watching the WNBA. But again, if you listen to the show, we talk about the WNBA. We talk about women's hoops. That's no surprise to you. So here we are, mid-October. Playoff baseball's going on. I've been watching playoff baseball, wearing my Tigers hat. Sad that we lost, especially to that team from that state that starts with the letter O. But no one thought that the Tigers were going to make the ALDS, especially where we were midway through the season. We got hot, won the wild card, won 5 games in the ALDS. Definitely a year where we exceeded what most people expected out of us. I've never been a big fan of AJ Hinch, but he really did a great job managing the team. I have to give him props for that. I've always been suspect of him, especially because of his role in what went on with those cheating Astros. So I'm so proud and happy that my Tigers had a good season and got into the postseason for the first time in 10 years. Shout out to the homie C. Hendo. He was on the show doing, 5 games into the season, did a little MLB preview on the show. And I posted a video of his predictions talking about how good the Tigers would be, how Screwball would be a potential Cy Young candidate, and that, some of the new young faces and talented faces in MLB are playing for my Detroit Tigers. And he was right. So shout out to C. Hendo. Check him out if you are not following him out there on social media. If you want a independent sports analysis. Someone's who's interviewing with especially Dallas sports, Cowboys, the Texas Rangers, Dallas Mavericks, your Dallas area sports. Follow my man Sehendo, Seehendo, Sehendo. Check him out. Give him a follow. A good brother, a great listen, friend of the pod. I can't wait to have him on. I'm probably going to definitely want to have him on before next year comes time for baseball preview. But at the minimum, I need the brother back for the 2025 MLB preview show. So that's what I've been watching. And that's what I've been playing. We're going to jump into our quick hits segment of the show. And quick hits to start. It's fall, y'all. And fall to me means football, American football, not football, but football. And all our quick hits today, football focused. So starting off with Money in the Bank or Prime rates. So Coach Prime, you know Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. You know the man, the guy who's for years been just dragged through the mud for his showboating and, being flashy, and people just don't like Prime. They don't like how he's outlandish and he's got panache, he's got charisma. Man, Deion's got the it factor. As a coach, however, he's got a heart factor. So Coach Prime has done something that's fantastic. I've never heard of a coach do this before. It may not be an original idea, but it's done fantastically. What Coach Prime has done is he has started savings accounts for the children of his Colorado football players that have children. So he has started if you're not very well versed with banking, I worked for a bank for a little bit, so I'm a little more familiar than the average person. So you have savings accounts, and then there are a saving account that's called a savings plan that's designed specifically for kids. It's called a 529 savings plan. Okay. And that's what Deion has done here. So Deion has created 529 savings plans for the children of some of his Colorado players that have children. What he has done is he set up an account for these kids and deposited a specific amount. That deposit is his famous number, 21. But not just $21, $2,121. 21. That's the amount that he opened each account with. And then he is going to double that later on to bring the grand total of a deposit by Deion into $4,242. And that's all going in from Prime himself. Obviously, the parents of these children, the Colorado football players, are going to be able to deposit into these accounts as well to build and save for the future of their children. Coach Prime wants the children of his players to go into life as adults with a step up. I completely applaud Coach Prime for this. It's an amazing thing that he has decided to do. Just applause to Coach Prime for doing something beyond what a coach has to do. Coach Prime, we appreciate what you're doing for the children. Continue to do this good work. Next on the quick hits list, staying on the gridiron, we are going to talk about the Pac-12. College football, y'all. Again, if you're new to the show, I'm a Big Ten guy. Michigander, Big Ten guy. Big Ten football is where it's at for me. The Pac-10, which now the Pac-12, respected it, it's just not they had schools, they had programs I respected, USC, UCLA, Oregon, some programs that have had recent good history, and those that have, the deep history of the UCLAs, the USCs, whether it's basketball, whether it's football, like these schools have deep history within the landscape of collegiate athletics. However, schools like Oregon, USC, and UCLA, they're now in the Big Ten. Yes, the Big Ten has way more than 10 schools. They're not going to change the name. The brand has too much power. It's not going to become the Big 14 or the Big 16, whatever total number the Big Ten ends up in. The Big Ten Conference is always going to be called the Big Ten. But it now is coast to coast from Jersey to Cali. And we've got USC, UCLA, Oregon, and I believe it's Washington. And Washington. I believe Washington, not Washington State. It's either Washington or Washington State. I don't remember the fourth one. That's a shame. But the big three that we were pulling over from the Pac-10 were Oregon, UCLA, and USC, which leaves the Pac-10 as a conference in a bit of a bad space, a bit of a flux. So the Pac-12 has, if I say Pac-10, I'm old, okay? And not just like because I'm old and my memory is not there. I'm just so used to saying Pac-10. It's Pac-12. It hasn't been Pac-12 for like super long, but it's been Pac-10 for most of my life. So if I say Pac-10, that's my bad. But continue on this Big Ten Pac-12 connection. Michigan State coach John Smith recently lent some thoughts on the state of the Pac-12, even though he is no longer employed by a Pac-12 school, but he's currently head coach at Michigan State. But he was an Oregon State quarterback. He's got Pac-12 roots, so his thoughts, matter. What's interesting to me is what the Pac-12 has to do to really keep going. And that's the big thing. So the NCAA has requirements to maintain your status as a conference in the NCAA. The Pac-12 needs 8 teams with football programs to continue to serve, to be a conference. So you can be a conference, without being a conference in every sport. So I may be wrong on this, but I don't think I am. But for example, the Big East, which was a vaunted conference in college basketball, I do not believe the Big East as a conference existed for football. It was a basketball conference. Villanova, UConn, Syracuse, St. Joseph's, I believe. Big East was a Temple. Yeah, Temple was Big East. I believe St. John's was also the Big East. The Big East doesn't exist in that way anymore, so and I haven't talked about the Big East in a while, so I apologize. My memory is not as strong as it normally is when it comes to that conference, and that's probably because it doesn't exist anymore. So I haven't talked about it or thought about it. But the Big East, to my knowledge, did not, and anybody out there listening, correct me if I'm wrong, but to my recollection, the Big East did not exist as a college football conference, strictly as a basketball. So if they want to continue existing as a football conference, the Pac-12 needs 8 teams, 8 programs with football programs. In September of this year, they reached 6 by adding Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Colorado State to the remaining members post the nice term would be a realignment. I consider it to be an exodus from the Pac-12. But the 2 remaining teams were Washington State and Oregon State. So Washington is what we put over into the Big Ten because Oregon State and Washington State remain in the Pac-12. Okay, so that's 6. They need 8. And that was September. Now, early September, I believe. Later on, when I first started planning this episode, I don't think this had happened yet, but the Pac-12 then added Utah State out of the Mountain West Conference, the MWC, the Mountain West Conference. Then early October, there was an announcement that Gonzaga would be adding to the Pac-12. Now, Gonzaga does not field a football program, but they will add to the basketball, and I believe they are going to be officially joining the Pac-12 it's going to be too late for 24-25, so it'll be 25-26 seasons. The Pac-12 still needs to add some more. Now, I should say it's unclear because we don't know if Gonzaga is going to add a football team. I highly doubt it. It's not a big school, and it's known as a basketball school, even though I have never had any faith in Gonzaga. They're known as a basketball school, but there's a possibility they could start a football program, and then that would give the Pac-12 the requisite number that they need to be a conference in football. If Gonzaga decides to stay a basketball school, then the Pac-12 is in need of finding another school. And honestly, I don't know where they would find that school. It really is a concern for them because Pac-12 has been a primarily football-focused conference. So, and to lose them, honestly, even though I have zero emotional connection to the Pac-12, I think it would be sad to lose that conference completely as a football conference because there is still so much history connected to it through that conference. Now, granted, a lot of the history is connected to certain programs within the conference, like the USC's, where the Rose Bowl was the home of, and now the Rose Bowl was the game, the Pac-10 champ against the Big Ten champ, the granddaddy of them all, so much history there. That history still lives, but it's now a Big Ten exclusive thing where it's no longer a Pac-10 versus Big Ten thing. So there's still some of that history there, but the Pac-12, in my opinion, is good. Its continued existence is good for college football. So I would personally like to see them add that necessary eighth program. My question to you all is, and my question just to myself is, who should it be? If it's me choosing, I don't know why I had to pick up this hanger because my foot was under it and it was like hitting my desk. And so I had to pick it up very deftly, and now it's in my hands. I don't want to throw it and just make random noise on this podcast. And now I've interrupted this podcast to talk about this hanger that, for those watching, see in my hand. Yeah. Anyway, I digress about the hanger. Now I hit something and I was trying to avoid that. I don't know who it is, but if I was the commissioner, I'm running the Pac-12, I would actually go for a little glamour, but also a school that has a football program, that has a respected football program. It's not the biggest football program. It's not the greatest, but the University of Hawaii is right there. And look, what athlete, because the university also has college basketball and other college sports. What athlete doesn't want to take a road trip to Hawaii? I know I do. And I haven't been in college athlete in 20 years, over 20 years. Now I'm hitting my microphone. I want to do that. So, yeah, that's where I'm at when it comes to adding a school. That's if I'm the Pac-12 commissioner, my number one draft choice, the school I am wooing, I am doing everything I can do to convince to join my conference, it's the University of Hawaii. All right. Last option here I'm sorry, not last. What am I talking about? I can't count. I have 4 and it's only 2 I mentioned. The next one is a high school news, specifically to the area that I live in, which is the state of Pennsylvania. The PIAA, that is the Pennsylvania, the I is Interscholastic Athletic Association. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it stands for. But it's the governing body that sanctions sports. The PIAA approved amongst their board of electors or directors or whatever, their big boss, big meeting this year, that they approved girls flag football is now going to be an officially sanctioned high school sport in Pennsylvania. The PIAA gave credit towards the Pittsburgh Steelers and Philadelphia Eagles organizations for their assistance in helping to get the sport sanctioned. At least 100 teams were required for girls flag football to be sanctioned. There are currently 36 schools on the western side of PA, 65 on the eastern, that are fielding girls flag football teams. The 36 ones for those on the west coast of western PA. My peoples who know me, who support the show out there in western PA, please continue to do so. And thank you, you Steeler fans, thank you Steelers for helping to make girls flag football a thing in high school. I think it's really exciting for young girls who are football fans. And let's face it, Pennsylvania has the most female football fans out of anywhere else. The Pittsburgh Steelers have the largest female fan base. The Philadelphia Eagles have a very large female fan base. So any state was going to have flag football for girls, or even tackle, but any form of football, flag tackle doesn't matter. If any state was going to have it, Pennsylvania makes the most sense because you have the most female fans here. The 25-26 school year will be when the sport officially starts play as a sanctioned sport. So if you have daughters like I do, who will be high schoolers, who are high schoolers now, but they will be high schoolers in the 25-26 school year, who have a vested interest in playing flag football. If they're not playing, get them start playing now so that they're ready come 25-26 and they can start playing official sanctioned flag football. And who knows, maybe you'll see your daughter playing college flag football at the nearest university in 3 years. I think personally that's really exciting. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it's a fantastic thing for women's sports, high school, and especially if it branches on to the collegiate level. To my knowledge, it's not on the collegiate level, but I would love to see it. At least at a minimum on the high school level, I think it is a fantastic option because I believe it can work with both ways. You could have the boys teams supporting the girls teams and so forth. A lot more connection, a lot more camaraderie, hopefully a lot more respect athletically across the board between the girls teams and the boys teams. So I think this is just an amazing, exciting piece of news. And I think it would be cool personally if I become a flag football dad in that aspect. That would be really dope. But that's just myself. I think it's an extremely cool thing. And I really look forward to seeing how everything plays out. And if all things work out, I would love to be there in Hershey, PA, which is where they hold all the, state championships. I would love to be one of the, members of the media covering that initial state championship for girls flag football. To my understanding, it's going to be 7-on-7 flag football, but the source of information I had did not specify. But to my understanding so far, it's going to be 7-on-7 flag football for these girls teams. If I have more information in the future, it may be another quick hit. We're going to move on now to our very last quick hit. So this last quick hit, it's also, again, football related, and it comes out of the Jeek Nation community on Facebook, which if you are listening and you're not a part of that, join our Facebook community. It is a lot of fun. We share memes, talk a lot of smack, share our love for all things Jeek. Obviously the sports side, football, basketball, soccer, track and field, baseball. If it's a sport, we've got somebody talking about it. And of course, the geek nerd side where we're talking Marvel, DC, Star Wars, Star Trek, anime, manga. We talking about it. We out here. So that is where this topic came from. So shout out to, Ryan Joseph Felton for posting this. So this was a post he found on Facebook, And it's a what if the NFL divisions were reimagined or realigned. And I thought this was really, really cool. Actually, I think if it will let me, I may divert my attention here and try to maybe share my screen so that those watching on a video can see what I'm looking at, but I don't know if I never didn't plan on doing that, but if I can within the next couple seconds, if I don't want to waste too much time here, I will do so. Okay, maybe I can. Cool. All right. Looks like I previously downloaded the picture, and I'm going to make it big, and then I should be able to share the screen here, and then y'all can see it as you're looking at my not so pretty face. Okay, cool. So there we go. This is, as above, the reimagined realignment of the NFL. Now, you would obviously have Western Conference and Eastern Conference, similar to basketball and hockey. But as you see up into the Northeast, you've got the Patriots, Jets, Giants, and Eagles, which I think would be really interesting of a division because the Eagles already don't like the Patriots. They feel that they've gotten robbed against them in the Donovan McNabb Super Bowl. And then, of course, they have the Super Bowl victory over the Patriots with Nick Foles that they love to brag about. So I think that will be a very interesting newer rivalry, post 2000s. Jets and Giants fans already are not friends. And I think a New York versus New York, and who will still both play in New Jersey. I think that would be a just fantastic rivalry that's already there in spirit to be even more front and center on the field. I think that's great. And then you have your mid-Atlantic division here, which would be the Cincinnati Bengals, which really aren't very mid-Atlantic, but okay, it's kind of a stretch. But I understand for the alignment, I kind of get where they're going. So you would have the Bengals in Cincinnati. That's the Stretch Armstrong stretch. Then you have the Baltimore Ravens, the Washington Commanders, and the Carolina Panthers. The Bengals and Ravens already have existing history. Washington and Carolina really don't move the needle as far as interesting football, but I think geographically it mostly makes sense. And just because they are in a different division now, it would be in a different division does not mean that throughout their schedule, they would not play their old hated rivals in the Cowboys, Giants, and Eagles. So I'm okay with that too. We continue to go south, and we have the Atlantic division, which would be comprised of the Atlanta Hawks, Jacksonville Jaguars, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Miami Dolphins. Obviously very Florida heavy because 3 of those 4 teams are in the state of Florida. One, battleground wise, cool. Florida battleground. I think that's very cool. And if you're a player, you don't have to travel that far for your divisional games. And your divisional games are twice a year. Like when half of your games, you're not traveling that far. That's a major boom. Like the NFC East as it currently is. I mean, you've got Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles, New York Giants. They're like right next door to each other. And then you've got Washington, which is, which is still relatively close. It's, Washington is 4-ish. Let's say 6 hours, maybe 7 from Philly. But the DC area is like, from me, it's like 5.5, 6 barring traffic. It's not that far of a drive. But so those three are already kind of close, but going all the way to Dallas, that's not East. You know what I'm saying? So the geographic, groupings, I think just would be great for players because outside of those half games that you're playing out of your division, you ain't got to go far at all. And at least in these, but you really don't have to go that far. And I think that's great. Staying further south, we have the new South Division, which will be comprised of the Tennessee Titans, the Dallas Cowboys, the New Orleans Saints, and the Houston Texans. I like this grouping, especially, the Titans and the Texans having the connection that they have, and they already do because they're already in a conference. But keeping that, I think, is great. Adding more Texas beef between Houston and Dallas, I think, is a good thing. And New Orleans is still close enough to have those out of division games, with the Falcons and such, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as they exist in their current conferences, where you're not traveling too far and you can still keep those old rivalries from the previous divisions. Continuing west, we've got the Big Sky Conference. Now, these guys have to travel a bit more, but again, they're not already, some of them are already in a division together already. So not much change going on with the Big Sky. You've got Kansas City, the Denver Broncos, the Las Vegas Raiders, which is still just hurts me to say. I would rather say LA or Oakland again. I prefer Oakland, but whatever. Still in the same division already. KC, Denver, Raiders. But we're adding the Phoenix Cardinals. Sorry, Arizona Cardinals. I call them the Phoenix Cardinals. They haven't been that in a long time. The Arizona Cardinals into that mix which is essentially replacing the San Diego Chargers. So that division really doesn't change much. It just makes it geographically make a little bit more sense than having San Diego. We go to the Pacific, which is just going straight up and down the coast, starting with the Chargers, the Rams, the 49ers, and then at the top of the coast, Seattle Seahawks. Not really much of a change there because, again, 3 of those 4 teams are already in the same division, and life is not much different. Just adding the Chargers and keeping this a true West Coast affair. Moving towards back to the middle of the country, or the beginning of the Midwest, we have the Great Lakes West Division, which is comprised of the Minnesota Vikings, Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears, and the Indianapolis Colts, which is most of the current NFC North. So you have old rivalries that still stick together, and adding the Colts geographically makes a lot of sense, especially what's the difference between Indy and Chi-Town. Makes for great rivalries. Indy and Chi-Town already are rivals in Big Ten football allegiances. It wouldn't take much to start a bitter rivalry between any of these Midwestern teams, because Midwestern fans already have their collegiate allegiances that are easily enough translated to the NFL. The big wild card, and this is not because my team is in it, the big wild card is how the Great Lakes East Division would really shake up. Because you have the Buffalo Bills, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Cleveland Browns, and the Detroit Lions. The Browns and Steelers historically are rivals, but these are still the new Browns. The original Browns are now known as the Baltimore Ravens. So while the history is kind of there, it hasn't been the same rivalry. It hasn't been as bitter since the Browns returned to the NFL. And I don't know, personally, I'm not a Steelers fan and I'm not a Browns fan. I don't know what could be done to reignite the passionate, bitter rivalry between the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Buffalo Bills doesn't really have any big history with any of these other teams, really. The Lions have even less history with any of these teams. So this really would be the division of truly new beginnings. You really have to start something new in this division to build upon storylines. I hate to make it sound like, because the whole thing is the NFL scripted, and look, all pro sports in some way are scripted. So let's just not beat that dead horse. But storylines matter. Okay. Storylines matter in all pro sports. Storylines matter in college sports. Okay. History matters. Storyline matters. Rivalries matter. And this would be a division of creating pretty much brand new storylines or trying to take, it's pretty much an absolute zero in my mind now, but whatever heat is left between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, trying to ignite that, you've got to create new rivalries within this Great Lakes East division. And it really would be, it'd be interesting, but as the way the teams are currently constructed, a Jared Goff versus Josh Allen rivalry would be really interesting to look at. Detroit and Pittsburgh are two of the biggest blue collar cities in this country. One blue collar city versus another, Motown versus Steel Town. That, I don't might call it Steel Town, but Motown versus Steel City. People who grind it out against people who grind it out. That could be interesting storytelling, getting the fans involved, conjuring some additional, flair to, behind the games, because it matters. It's part of what sells tickets, y'all. The history there. Cowboys, Eagles, there's so much bad blood and history there. It sells tickets on its own, regardless of how bad the teams, how good or how bad the teams that are being fielded are. Those games sell because of the bad blood. You got to establish something new in this imagined division. So I think there would be great potential if this was a division and starting something new. And starting something new would, I believe, be a great idea for the NFL because you need fresh rivalries. You need new rivalries to grow. You try to maintain old ones, baseball with the Yankees and Red Sox, stuff like that. But you need new ones to come about. You need new heroes, you need new villains, and having a division like this would allow you to make new heroes and new villains. So again, shout out to Ryan Felton for posting this in the group. I think it's extremely intriguing. I think it would be a great shakeup for the NFL for them to realign, and make it. So I got rid of it. I think it would be a fantastic idea to do this in the NFL. I completely, highly doubt Roger Goodell would even consider doing it. But Roger Goodell, if you're feeling bold, realign. I think it's a fantastic idea. All right. Back to our regularly not screen shared program. But before we do, we're going to take a minute. We're going to take a break because I talked about new things, and a lot of people have new ideas and new things that they want to share. Like me. I started the original Jeek Podcast because I wanted to share my passion for sports, my passion for things nerdy/geeky. I really wanted to share the love and the way those two things mesh in my life. And Unique DNA, we were having these dope conversations, and I was like, yo, let's record it. And that's what started the original Jeek Podcast. All these years later, the podcast is still going, and we took some tools and started it. And that's the question I get. I get the question from people all the time, like, dude, how do I start a podcast? Well, one of the best things to do to start a podcast is to find the best tools. And Zencastr is one of those tools that I here at Jeek Nation use for almost every Jeek Nation production. Breaking Ring Rust, our pro wrestling podcast. This show, the original Jeek Podcast, made with Zencastr. If you've never heard of Zencastr, Zencastr is the ultimate web-based podcasting solution. Web-based. That means so many of the tools are online. You don't have to have a whole bunch of equipment. Now, I have some fancy equipment. I've been doing this for years. And I'm a geek. I'm a geek. I like the geek side. I like the hardware stuff. It's cool. You see, my mic is here. It's got a little boom arm on it. It's cool. I've got a Rodecaster Pro to my right here, tripods. But you don't have to wow out like that, especially when you start. You don't have to drop, $5, 6, 7, $800,000 on a bunch of podcasting equipment. Now, some companies want you to, but you don't have to. You can have your phone. Like my camera right now, my camera is an iPhone 12, and it looks great. I don't look great. I ain't pretty, but it's a great picture. It's a great video quality. That's already in my hand. You can get yourself a $6 tripod and boom, you've got a camera. You grab a microphone, you have a computer that you likely already have or an iPad, and boom, you start using Zencastr to record audio and video as a web-based solution. Zencastr provides high-quality audio and video, podcast production, and hosting, so you have a place to store it. With an entirely full suite of professional tools that podcasters can seamlessly record, produce, and publish studio quality content like this. And you can do it all from one singular dashboard. Now, when it comes to the video part, for those watching, I'm not even maximizing the full quality of video right now. Zencastr records up to 4K video content, y'all. And that gives you the picture perfect quality that your podcast deserves. No, when I say deserves, I mean that. Because if you put the work into producing a great podcast you've planned, you have researched, you've got your topics down, you have gotten your guests together, or yourself or your co-hosts or co-hosts, you've done all that work, you then deserve to have a studio quality production. And Zencastr allows you to have that and allows you to distribute your video part. If you do video for your podcast, it allows you to distribute that in 1080p available across video podcast players. But it's more than just video. Some people like to do audio only. And for most of the existence of the original Jeek Podcast, we've been primarily audio only. And hey, Zencastr's post-production process takes the massive headaches out of audio production. You can set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noises, like me accidentally hitting my desk with a hanger. You can do all that with a click of a button. Yeah, that easy. So, if you have a podcast idea, and trust me, I know some of you listeners do, because you tell me, if you're ready to start, go to Zencastr.com/pricing and use my code JeekNation. You know how to spell it. JeekNation. Jeek Nation. And you'll get 30% off your first 3 months of Zencastr Professional. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. So again, Zencastr.com/pricing. Use the promo code JeekNation. And now, back to the rest of the show. So today's main event, our primary topic of the episode, it's a little bit sad. 2024 decided to act a fool at the last half and just start taking out so many cherished individuals in the world of pop culture, entertainment, sports. I want to pay homage to some of those. I can't cover all of them. I really can't. So I picked 5 that personally speak to me, and others that are past that you want to, share on, reminisce on, talk about. Please join in the conversation on posts that we put on all our socials. But these are 5 that I want to talk about today briefly. And I'm not even going to talk about them. I'm just going to share and commemorate their passing. But I'm going to share final 5 lists of these people, except for one. One, I'm going to produce a video after words because I really can't show you as I would like to. Well, at least not while I'm recording this. So this is a in memoriam of all the pop culture sports icons that we've lost in 2024. But in particular, these five are Frankie Beverly, James Earl Jones, John Amos, Dikembe Mutombo, and Carl Weathers. To celebrate first the life of Frankie Beverly, I'm going to give you a final five list. 5 Frankie Beverly and Mays, Frankie Beverly songs that have really, in my opinion, defined culture, particularly Black culture, but defined culture within the United States of America and around the world. The number one song on this list, and not number one as far as ranking, but the first song I'm listing here, the track called When I'm Alone. Number 2 is going to be a track called Golden Time of Day. Number 3, the song called Can't Get Over. Number 4 is a song that really resonates in this time of sadness, reflecting upon the life and passing of Frankie Beverly and all these people. And that song is Joy and Pain. Yes, you know it. Joy and pain, sunshine and rain. Fantastic song. And then the very last, but not even close least, probably Frankie Beverly and Mays' most popular song. You hear it at pretty much any Black cookout across the United States of America. And that is Before I Let Go. You hear it in the club, you hear it at the cookout. Depending upon the context, you may even hear it in church. But Before I Let Go, Frankie Beverly and Mays, that rounds out these final 5. If you don't know all 5 of these songs, I encourage you, go to Spotify, make a short list, and press play. And you won't be disappointed. Moving to the next final 5, this final 5 is going to be in honor of John Amos. John Amos was an actor, and this final 5 list is going to be 5 things that you should watch that John Amos starred in. And this is a combination of TV and film. So the first thing that John Amos, I would say to watch for him, is in the miniseries Roots. In the second half of the miniseries Roots, John Amos played older version of Kunta Kinte, who was originally portrayed as a younger version by LeVar Burton of Reading Rainbow and Star Trek fame. John Amos also played the weatherman on the hit sitcom, The Mary Tyler Moore Show. One of my early introductions as well to John Amos. He was also in Die Hard 2, which is also a Christmas movie. Not as Christmassy as Die Hard 1. Die Hard 1 emphasized Christmas a bit more, but takes place during Christmas. So maybe Die Hard 2 is not a Christmas movie. We can debate that. Die Hard is a Christmas movie. It's October. We're going to start that debate regardless. John Amos was also in The West Wing, which is a fantastic political drama. Lastly, John Amos' most famous role, the role that was so groundbreaking before Bill Cosby did The Cosby Show and changed television, especially for Black family depiction on television. John Amos was America's first Black TV dad that was a star and in the home. Every other show did not have a starring in-home father. John Amos was that first in-home father, leading his household, caring for his wife, raising his children, working hard to provide in the hit show Good Times. If you haven't seen Good Times, if you haven't seen any of these, I encourage you to watch them all and look for John Amos. Early episodes of Mary Tyler Moore. Again, the second half of Roots. The West Wing, he had, 15 some-ish episodes. But Good Times is the magnum opus for John Amos and what he did, his portrayal did for television, especially for Black audiences watching, and also the history behind it on why he was eventually killed off. His character was killed off on the show. Tragic, in my opinion, because of how positive of an impact the character of James Edmonds portrayed by John Amos was. And hopefully whatever the drama that I'm hearing about his family and when he died and how he died gets resolved, because we don't need that type of silliness. That type of mess is just too messy, y'all. So Amos family, please figure it out and just honor your father, your loved one's career, his life, his passing. The next final 5 is going to be for Carl Weathers. And same as with John Amos, it's going to be 5 things that you should watch starring Carl Weathers. Number 1, it's going to be Predator. Predator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Carl Weathers, Bill Duke. Fantastic film. The best Predator of all the Predator movies. Where it all began. Definitely watch Predator. Number 2 is going to be Rocky 2. I believe, long story short, I believe that Carl Weathers' Apollo Creed is the best character that came out of the Rocky movies. And I think it's further proved with the Creed movies, following Adonis Creed, on how strong of a character Apollo Creed was and how great a portrayal Carl Weathers did of Apollo Creed. Also the TV show In the Heat of the Night. We also have the TV show The Mandalorian, most recent. And then rounding out this final 5 list for Carl Weathers is the movie he starred in alongside Vanity, Action Jackson. And then the last one, final 5 I'm going to have is for the great James Earl Jones. I've seen on the internet a lot of people saying, they miss James Earl Jones, and a lot of people, depending upon the demographic, were posting certain things, but a lot of it is Darth Vader and Mufasa. There was so much more to James Earl Jones' acting than Darth Vader and Mufasa. So his final 5 is going to be comprised of the following. Star Wars, yes. The Empire Strikes Back, fantastic. His voice work was amazing. Then there's Coming to America, where he played the king, Joffrey Joffer. There's a movie that's underrated, him and Robert Duvall, called A Family Thing. Then there's The Great White Hope, where he plays a character based off of boxing legend Jack Johnson. And finally, that you probably don't expect, is James Earl Jones reads the King James Bible. If you love listening to the Bible and love listening to James Earl Jones' voice, you got to listen to James Earl Jones reading the Bible, y'all. It's a must listen. There's no other words. It is a must. Trust me, that's completely on that. Those are just great options to watch James Earl Jones and listen to James Earl Jones read the Bible. So that is going to conclude most of our episode of the original Jeek Podcast. Before I end the show, I do have a shout out to give. I've got a shout out to give to the department. I look down here as I read off this card. Comics and Collectibles Are Us. Yes, Comics and Collectibles Are Us. This is not an ad. This is just a shout out. I did my ad for Zencaster already. This is for Comics and Collectibles Are Us and its owner, Joe Pacifico, aka Joe Comic. Comics and Collectibles Are Us is based out of I believe it's the Galleria Mall in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I have been to that mall multiple times because of my job. And every time I'm there, generally, it's early in the morning and the store is closed. But I had to go there, and I was there around noon one day, and the store was open, and I had a free moment. So I popped in there, and I did made some unexpected purchases that I was really pleased to make, and talked to Joe, saw a store. My man's got signed jerseys. He's got signed movie posters. My man has comics. He's got action figures, Funko Pops. He's got variant covers signed. He's got graded, like my man has some pieces in there. Really chill environment. Popcorn for people to eat and enjoy and hang and lounge at the store a really dope space. I really look forward to visiting again next time my work or for some reason life just finds me in the Scranton, PA area. If you are within the Scranton, PA vicinity and you don't know about Comics and Collectibles or us, do yourself a favor, visit Joe Comic and his store and have yourself a great time. Shout out to you, Joe. Thank you for making my shopping experience there awesome. Thank you for being willing to sell me the Miles Morales variant cover that you had planned on getting signed at Comic-Con and forego that to let me buy it and add it to my collection. A lot of places wouldn't do that. So shout out to you, Joe. I wish you all the best and success for your store, and hope everything works out for you as you go up to New York City Comic-Con within the next couple weeks. So that's going to conclude this episode of the original Jeek Podcast. I'm your host, RockinMrMagic, and I want to thank you for listening. And I want you to know that we could not do this show without you Jeeks who continue to download, share, and support this show. Thank you so much for continuing to do that. I can't express enough how thankful I am for those people who continue to support this show, despite the breaks in recordings and the inconsistent creation, the hiatuses, the fact that Unique DNA in my schedule so continually for so long been unable to have us both be on an episode. But you have endured. Our awesome guests have continued to come on and help us endure, and I just thank you so much for that. You can listen to this show on what is now our preferred app. You don't have to listen to it on this app, but if you do, you would be doing your boy RockinMrMagic a favor if you listen to any Jeek Nation show, the original Jeek Podcast, Breaking Ring West. If you listen to our shows and any future podcasts we produce, if you listen to our shows on Good Pods, I would appreciate it. One, because I like the app, especially the redesign, and I think it's a great podcast-focused app. And I think you'll enjoy the user interface and the ability to share and interact and find friends and rate, comment. I think it's a very fun and interactive experience. But also Good Pods has been a great friend to this pod. So I have a kindred connection to Good Pods. So my podcast app of choice for you to listen to us would be on Good Pods. But you can also not only find us on Good Pods, but you can find any Jeek Nation show on Spotify, as well as Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and others. If you use a different podcasting app and you can't find us, let us know. You can email us at jeeknation@gmail.com or message us on Facebook or Instagram. And until next time, peace.
Ready to make an entrance, so backward cut.
Come on, clap for me.
Oh, yeah. Whoa, slow down. Whoa, speed up.
This is DJ What, and you're listening to the original Jeek Podcast.